everybody, Trevor here, and it's time for another installment of Disney Month. And for today's topic, we'll be discussing my top 10 Disney Channel shows. Before we start, it's time for a little history lesson. The original Disney Channel was first launched in 1983, and that was during the dark age of the company. And during that time, they introduced their first original program known as Good Morning Mickey, and it aired some classic Disney shorts including the Mickey Mouse ones, as well as the Silly Symphonies. Eventually, the channel started making more new original shows, including DuckTales, which became very successful, The Adventures of the Gummy Bears, and of course, The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, just to name a few. And ever since the late 80s and early 90s, they introduced some original live-action shows such as The Famous Jet Jackson, Flash Forward, Adventures in Wonderland, which was quite underrated, and of course, Lizzie McGuire, which came out in 2001. In 1997, Disney Channel became a premium network, and they split into three programming blocks. Playhouse Disney, which eventually shut down and was replaced by Disney Junior years later, Zoo Disney, which aired live-action shows, and Vault Disney, which aired classic shows such as Zorro and the Mickey Mouse Club. And in 1998, they introduced Toon Disney, which is my favorite of the bunch because it aired some of the best classic Disney shows such as those from the Disney Afternoon and One Saturday Morning eras. Now sadly, Toon Disney shut down in 2009 and was replaced by Disney XD. Man, I miss Toon Disney, but hey, at least Disney XD has gotten better years later with fresh new cartoons such as the DuckTales 2017 reboot, because back when the block first aired, it didn't have that many cartoons aside from Phineas and Ferb, just to name one. Now with the history lesson out of the way, I'm going to give out some rules for this top 10. I will not be including any live action, preschool, or any of the classic Disney shorts that I've covered in the past. I also won't be including anything that wasn't created by Disney. This top 10 is for cartoon shows that I grew up with as a kid, whether they be on Disney Afternoon or One Saturday Morning. So, sorry millennials. Okay, I'll throw in one here, but it'll be a surprise. In addition, I won't be including any TV shows based on their respective movies, with a few exceptions, but I'll get to those in a little bit. Now with the rules out of the way, let's get this magical top 10 video started. Coming at number 10 is Buzz Lightyear Star Command. I was first introduced to this in a direct-to-video TV movie known as The Adventure Begins, not to be confused with the one from Thomas and Friends, where Tim Allen reprises his role for the character just for this, but then was replaced by Patrick Warburton in the actual series. As a big fan of Toy Story, I still love this show from the bottom of my heart. I love the action, the humor, the 2D animation at the time, and some of the new characters like Booster and XR. I also thought Wayne Knight was hilarious as the evil Emperor Zurg. However, I put this as number 10 because this one is a TV series spin-off of the Toy Story franchise, but with 2D animation. And unfortunately, this show was never on Disney Plus for some stupid reason. Not to mention that the Pixar company disliked this show, and therefore made their own take on it by making the Lightyear movie, which I thought wasn't as bad as what most people think. Though I still prefer Buzz Lightyear's Star Command in terms of nostalgia and consistency within the Toy Story lore. Oh, and during the making of this video, I've also learned that there were a few cancelled shorts regarding the Toy Story franchise, with one of them being Woody's Roundup, which I would have loved to see. Number 9. Timone and Pumba. Now I know what you're thinking. Shouldn't this be part of the number 10 spot as well? Isn't this a TV show based on The Lion King? Well, to be honest, when I look back at this show, it's not entirely canon to the Lion King trilogy because the two comic relief characters use some human technology like a jeep, or when they travel all over the world to see stuff like the running of the bulls in Spain, just to name one. But regardless, I still love this show, mainly because Timon and Pumbaa were some of my favorite comic relief characters of all time, and I honestly thought it was hilarious when they used modern human technology as well as seeing some human characters in person, which don't exist in the original Lion King lore. One of my favorite episodes was the two-parter, Home is Where the Hog Is, where Timon and Pumbaa must work together to help the Pumbaa Sounders, who are trapped in their own fortress due to a herd of guinea fowl who like to eat things up. But the best part of that episode was in part 2 during the climax where Timone and Pumba tried to fend off the guinea fowl while delivering a bag of bugs, which turned out to be firecrackers, which turned the guinea fowl into fried turkey, which was pretty hilarious. All in all, despite it not being really canon to the Lion King lore, I thought this show was hilarious. I suggest you give it a watch if you're a fan of these two characters. Number 8. Recess. Recess. When I was in school, my favorite part of the day was playing on the playground with my friends and acquaintances, which is one of the reasons why I enjoyed this show. I also liked some of the characters, including TJ Detweiler, who was the leader of the gang, Ms. Finster, who was the assistant school teacher and one of the antagonists, and the fat boy named Mikey, who has a captivating manly singing voice, which is one of the jokes of his character. The kids themselves go on various adventures, not just around the playground, but also inside the school. One of my favorite episodes was The Lost Ball, when Gus accidentally loses a ball into somebody's yard, which causes the other kids to call him Ball Loser, which leads to him having a nightmare about that. But thankfully, it turns out that the woman at the mansion, whose name was Dot, was a nice person after all, and was kind enough to give Gus the ball back, as well as giving him and his friends some cookies as a treat. Oh, and has anyone seen Recess Schools Out? Yeah, that was a pretty good movie. It's too bad that there are no plans for a DVD and Blu-ray re-release, though. Oh, and I also like the theme song for Recess, because it sounds like a marching band at school. Even though I didn't like going to school as a kid because it involves work, but like the adult life, it's not all bad either. In fact, when I was younger, I always liked to go on adventures whether at school or at home, and those are all the reasons why I enjoyed the cartoon Recess. Number 7. Gargoyles. I believe this action-packed show was made to rival Batman the Animated Series, but with gargoyles that come out at night. This show is about a group of nocturnal gargoyles who turn to stone during the day, but one day, they were attacked by humans whom they had sworn to protect, and for 1,000 years, they were frozen in stone by a magic spell until one night in 1994, a billionaire named David Xanatos purchased the castle and placed it on top of the New York City skyscraper, hoping that the gargoyles would come back to life by then. What I love about this show is not only the likable and relatable characters, but I also enjoy the action, the drama, and even the theme song, which I thought was really epic. Though this show also has its controversies, like the episode Deadly Force, where Broadway plays with Eliza Mays's gun and accidentally shoots her, which causes him to be very upset. But luckily, Eliza survives the blast, and they learn not to mess with or replace guns ever again. So in conclusion, Gargoyles is a great show, and it deserves the number 7 spot on this list because of these reasons alone. Oh, and it has been announced that a live-action reboot of Gargoyles is in the works and will air on Disney+, which I hope will be overall good because I'm not really obsessed with live-action shows in general. Number 6. Darkwing Duck. This show is about a duck named Drake Mallard who goes on adventures fighting crime alongside his adopted daughter, Gosselin Mallard, and his trusty sidekick, Launchpad McQuack, who also appears as a supporting character in DuckTales. This, in my opinion, is another great action-packed cartoon on Disney Channel. I enjoy the characters, especially the main one who was voiced by the legendary Jim Cummings, the action, the comedy, and most especially, the catchy theme song. I especially like the Fearsome Five, including Negaduck, who was the dark counterpart of Darkwing Duck. In addition, the show is kind of like Batman, but with a comedic twist. Speaking of which, I like Darkwing Duck's monologue in pretty much every episode where he says, "I am the terror that flaps in the night," was quite entertaining to listen to. So all in all, Darkwing Duck is a pretty good cartoon. I suggest you give it a watch, especially if you're a longtime Disney Channel fan like me. Number 5. Goof Troop. Goof Troop, one of the funniest Disney Channel cartoons from my childhood, and one of the best in the 1990s. The show stars Goofy and his son Max, who have just moved in their new neighborhood where they live next door to Pete and his family. And throughout the show, Max and PJ become best friends and they do practically everything together, while there are subplots where they focus on either Goofy, Pete, or even both. Anyways, what I love about Goof Troop is not only the humor and the characters, But the best part of the show, in my opinion, would have to be the theme song because every time I hear it, it makes me want to dance like a hip hop star. I also enjoy both Goofy movies despite them being products of their time, but they're still 10 times more watchable than most of the stuff made by Disney Toon Studios, in my opinion, that is. Oh, and speaking of a Goofy movie, there's a popular fan theory that the reason Peg Pete and Pistol Pete never appeared in the movies was most likely because she and Pete had a divorce at some point. And I would have to say that that theory is legitimate because there were moments in the show where Peg Pete would either argue with or berate his greedy and selfish husband Pete. Well, whatever the case, it's too bad they didn't get to appear in the two Goofy movies. Oh, and in addition to the Goofy movies, am I the only one who thinks that Bobby is the only good Pauly Shore role in history? Anyway, Goof Troop is an overall fun and excellent Disney Channel cartoon, and if you're a fan of Goofy in general, then I highly recommend this show to your family and friends. Number 4 is Tailspin. To those of you who haven't been following me before, The Jungle Book is one of my all-time favorite Disney films from my childhood, which is one of the reasons why I love Tailspin. The second reason is that I enjoyed the new characters including Don Carnage, who is a recurring antagonist, and Kit Cloudkicker, who acts as a replacement for Mowgli from the original 1967 movie. The third reason is the theme song, because I thought it was fun, and it sounded hilarious in a way. The show was set in Cape Suzette, which is a fictional harbor town protected by rocky cliffs, where Rebecca Cunningham works as the new boss for Baloo due to his laziness and hasn't been paying the bills in a long while. And I don't know about you guys, but I actually enjoyed all the episodes, including the ones that were banned from television, such as the final episode where they had to deliver a package that has a ticking bomb. In addition, Baloo is a great and funny protagonist. It's even more entertaining when they added in King Louie as a supporting character, and Shere Khan as a bipedal anti-villain who works as the head of Khan Industries. Not to mention that the late Tony Jay did an excellent job with his voice. Although I do find it odd that Bagheera doesn't really appear in the show, aside from a few bipedal clones of him in some scenes. It would have been nice if the actual Bagheera appeared as a supporting character too. So in conclusion, Tailspin is a fun, action-packed, and unforgettable experience. If you're a big fan of the Jungle Book like I am, or if you're into airplanes in general, then I suggest you give this show a watch. Number 3 is Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. No, I'm not talking about the movie, I'm talking about the original cartoon from the late 1980s. This show is about our favorite chipmunks Chip and Dale, who go on adventures with two mice named Gadget and Monterey Jack, as well as a fly named Zipper. And together as a team, they help people and other animals, which does remind me of the Rescuers a little bit. And there were even some episodes where they had to stop the bad guys from succeeding, including Fat Cat and Professor Nimnol, both voiced by Jim Cummings. What I like about this show are the cute and charming characters, especially Chip and Dale themselves. In fact, I think the original high-pitched voices for them in the show suit them much better than in the live-action movie, which is basically another ripoff of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Yes, as you can tell, I don't really like the live-action Chip and Dale movie that much. When I first heard about it, I was kind of expecting it to be a live-action retelling of the first Chip and Dale episode, but with their normal high-pitched voices. But no, it had to be a combination of Who Framed Roger Rabbit in terms of plot, and the amazing world of Gumball in terms of using a different variety of animation styles. Now, I don't mind if Gumball has this sort of style, but this is Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. Shouldn't they at least pick one style of animation, like CGI for example? And not only that, but I hate how they made Peter Pan the villain here because it really rubs me the wrong way. I mean, it's like they're making fun of the tragic backstory of Peter Pan's original voice actor, Bobby Driscoll, who died of drug use. How scummy is that? Back to the original show. Another thing I like about the show is the awesome theme song. Not only is it fun, catchy, and memorable, but it has this classic 80s vibe to it, which does explain why it first came out in 1988 and premiered on Disney Channel from 1989 to 1990. But if there's one nitpick I had to point out with the show, it would be the repetitive instrumentals that they play here and there throughout the show. It does get tiring to hear after a while. I mean, it's just like with the Scooby-Doo cartoons where they use music cues for certain scenes over and over again. But other than that, I still think Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers is a cute, charming, and wonderful show. And if you're a big fan of Chip 'n Dale cartoons in general, then this is the perfect cartoon for you. Coming at number 2 is DuckTales, both the original and reboot. This is one of the first most successful television shows not just for Disney Channel, but in animation history, period. The premise is about a very rich duck named Scrooge McDuck who goes on adventures with his 3 nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, his niece Webby Vanderquack, and all his other friends including Launchpad McQuack, as I stated earlier in the video. And together, they go on adventures solving mysteries and fighting evildoers including the Beagle Boys, Magic Dispel, and his rival Flintheart Glomgold. The reason this show is so successful is not just because of the entertainment, but also the wonderful animation at the time, the lovable and relatable characters, the catchy theme song, the awesome writing, and it had heart, soul, and efforts put into the whole show. In other words, it wasn't like the other cartoons at the time because most cartoons were either educational stuff or just made to sell toys. DuckTales isn't like that. Sure, it did teach lessons here and there, but it was mostly made to be entertainment. Disney put their best effort into making this as high quality as possible. In fact, it was so successful that they eventually made a DuckTales movie in 1990, which was also good. And like most of the other shows on this list, I pretty much enjoyed all the episodes from start to finish. And I also loved the original casting of the characters, including the late Alan Young as Scrooge McDuck, the late Rusty Taylor as Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Webby, and the late June Foray as Magic Dispel and Ma Beagle. And yes, I have seen the first episode of the reboot plus some clips of the show here and there, and I've got to say, it's a reboot done right. While I do prefer the original in terms of nostalgia, voice acting, and character designs, but when it comes to humor, pop culture references, and special guest appearances of other Disney Channel characters, the reboot is even better. You see, this is how you do a proper reboot, writers. So, all in all, DuckTales is an overall great show, whether it be the original from 1987, which I have grown up with, or the 2017 reboot. And if you're a die-hard Disney fan like I am, then I suggest you give both shows an honest chance because they're both great in their own right. Now, before I get to my number 1 pick, I just want to give some honorable mentions. Adventures of the Gummy Bears. While I do like this show nowadays, but I barely remembered it as a kid for some reason. But hey, at least my sister remembered it. The original Proud Family. I already gave my thoughts on this show in a couple previous videos, so I'll provide links for them in the description below. Kim Possible. I liked it, but I wasn't obsessed with it. In fact, it's been a while since I've seen it. Bonkers. It's been a while since I've seen that show too, but I did like the cartoon gags in it, which made me think of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I actually grew out of Winnie the Pooh a long time ago, but regardless, this is an overall pretty good and a nostalgic cartoon. And my number 1 most favorite Disney Channel show of all time is House of Mouse. I don't know about you, but I love this show ever since I was an adolescent because not only you get to see the Mickey Mouse characters working at the nightclub, but you also get to see the other Disney characters from your favorite Disney movies in the audience, including Ariel, Hades, King Louie, who was called King Larry at the time due to copyright issues, and even some of the more forgotten ones like those from Song of the South, if you're a fan of Splash Mountain, that is. There's even a new and exclusive character named Microphone Mike, voiced by the late Rod Roddy. Maybe his passing was the reason why the show got cancelled in 2003. Those are 2 of the reasons why this is number 1. The third and final reason is that for some reason, this show never made it onto DVD as a complete series, nor was it aired on Disney+. Honestly, I would kill for a revival of this show, or maybe even a reboot if it's done right. Plus, I don't understand why they wouldn't add this to Disney Plus alongside its 2 direct-to-video specials. And that's another thing. The 2 specials that I still have on DVD are some of the only Disney DVDs I still have because I donated most of the other ones just for the sake of Disney Plus. And if Disney does decide to revive this show as a reboot, then I think they should add in some of the newer Disney characters that never appeared in the show before, such as those from Princess and the Frog, Tangled, Frozen, and maybe even make Sora as a brief appearance, though I seriously doubt that. Disney, if you're watching this, then please, I beg of you, Put House of Mouse on Disney Plus, both the show and its 2 direct-to-video specials, because it's one of the best Disney cartoons of all time, and one of the best of my childhood. I don't see why you wouldn't. Anyways, let me know in the comment section below on which of these Disney Channel shows are your favorite. Do you agree with my list, or do you have your own personal preference? And it doesn't have to be something from the 80s and 90s, it can also be something from the 21st century. But let's all try to respect each other's opinions here, because I don't want any flame wars whatsoever. This is Trevor Davis, signing off.